This is the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club.
Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. Episode, what number is this? 91. We're getting up there, man. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by Ray, Chris, and Sean. No, not Sean. What am I saying? Sean's not here tonight because he's having a migraine. So, and Joseph. Joseph's the one that even picked the books. Where am I going? Anyway, we got really sidetracked in the pre-show. Sorry, guys. By the way, I just wanted to say I'm loving the new music. If you're hopefully you're liking the new music as well. Ray did a good job with that. So tonight, in an effort to try to catch up because we're all burning through the Carl books really, really fast, we decided we were going to cover 3 books tonight. I think the only time we've ever done this was way back. We covered like 3 free audio books, and they were very short.
I mean, the last time we talked about Carl, we did 1 and 2.
We did 1 and 2, true. So it's just one more, but still, there's a lot that happens in these books. So that being said, tonight we are covering book 3, the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, book 4, the Gate of the Feral Gods, and book 5, the Butcher's Masquerade. So we already know why you picked, because, well, I mean, you picked the first, you picked the series and got us all hooked on it. So that's covering that one already. So let me just again jump on into it. So this has a 4.9 rating out of 17,602 reviews. So these books still have a very, very high rating as they go through. Should I go through the synopsis or just kind of hit some of the high points? The synopsis just kind of gives a general thing. So in this third book, we're hitting this is what the 4th floor? Yeah, the 4th floor. It's called the Iron Tangle. It's essentially a pseudo weird subway system, even though there are subway trains, there's diesel engines, there's like old school coal burning locomotives. Like this thing, it's just thrown together. Like everything else that this alien culture has done with Earth, it's just throw it all together and see what sticks, essentially. So yeah, the first book that we're covering is the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. I have gotten to where, since this book, I really try to pay attention to the cover art, and I've got the cover art for the book of it right now, because it does give away quite a bit of stuff that happens in the book. Yeah. So we have Mantars, and when it explained it, I was like I had to go back and listen to the explanation of what a mantar is. So essentially, picture like a centaur. What?
A jacked dude.
Yeah, a jacked dude
coming out of his head.
Yeah, where the head is, and then there's another jacked dude for the legs. So it's literally like a dude connected to a dude. It's crazy. And then they have Wolverine claws. They're wearing like a conductor's cap. I guess I should have put mine on for this part of the show, but I didn't think about it. Anyway, so in the first book, or in this book, they have to get to the Iron Tangle, and it's very confusing, which is kind of the main part of the book. So let's start off with some of the new characters that we're introduced to in this book. The first one is honestly a main character that goes on throughout, at least up to the point in the series we're at. That's Katya. Any thoughts on Katya?
I really like her evolution. I really like that. Quinn's listening to the second. They just finished the second book, so and that's when Katya's introduced, and I forgot just how sort of mousy she is and how really indecisive she is, and so yeah, her character arc, I like it. It's believable with the amount of shit that she gets through.
Oh, absolutely. And when we talk about book 5 here in just a bit, that's when she really kind of turns and becomes this strong leadership type character. I liked Katya all the way through. I was not sure. So the way that we're introduced to Katya is essentially another group is like, hey, would you mind kind of taking care of her, taking her under your wing? And they're just like, okay, but she doesn't really jive too well. They're trying to kind of incorporate her into the group, but you're right. It's even brought up at one point. Donut brings up to Carl. She's like, no, she she did the thing. They're like, yeah, you told her to. You didn't ask her. You never asked her if she wanted to do this. And Carl was kind of like, oh, crap, you're right, I didn't. And so he does. I'm going to get to this in just a bit as well about Carl's character, but he does go back and ask her, and she's like, no, I'm trying to pull my weight. And especially the next 3 books, her character develops a lot. And you're right. It is very believable considering the backstory we start to get on Katya. So, Amani really kind of starts coming into a character on her own. She, at this point, so when they hit, is it this floor, at the beginning of this floor, where they have to choose their first class?
It was the 3rd floor.
3rd floor. Okay, so it was the previous floor. So Amani has like these butterfly type wings, and that anything they touch pretty much like gives you enhancements and stuff. So she's really cool in that way. Another one of the characters that really starts to come into her own, especially in this one, is Ellie. So Ellie was a senior citizen. She was like 99 years old. Carl saves her, I think, in book 1. And she never forgets it. And I think he even says at this point, he goes, man, she must have been a real hoot when she was younger, because if this is her personality when she was younger, like she would have been a firecracker. So yeah. I like
she's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like Ellie, and I like the fact that she's a real badass as well.
Oh yeah.
So and then we end well, at least part of the Frank Hugh and Maggie Mai saga in this one as well. We don't fully wrap that up until a little bit later, but we'll get to that in just a bit. I'm going to start with any least favorite things to this book.
Oh. I'll jump in before Chris.
Okay.
This one was a little bit hard to visualize at times, just because of how confusing the tunnels were. And okay, you got to get on this train to go to this car to this, and like that whole thing. So that was a bit hard to follow at times, but I enjoyed this as well. So there wasn't a lot of downtime, but yeah, that was probably the most confusing part for me.
Y'all have a print copy of it. Is there a drawing anywhere in it that shows?
Yeah, there is. There's actually.
You start your.
I start my rant.
Your rant, and I'll be back.
All right.
Welcome to my TED Talk. No, for me, it was very difficult to see it in my head, and because of that, I had a really hard time getting through this book because it was so confusing. I didn't know which way was up. There was so much happening, which, I mean, that's sort of the whole thing, right? There's so much going on because of the nature of the story, but like, holy hell, I was like, it was just really hard to get through. It was very, very confusing. I gave up understanding what the hell was happening at certain points, but I'm just like, sure, okay, I'm gonna believe you that this is what's happening. I have stopped paying attention because you're starting. It's whenever the tracks were being described, and I tried to sort of visualize it like the last season of the Umbrella Academy, when Five and I can never remember her name.
I can't remember her name either, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
get stuck on the train. So I kind of sort of pictured it like that, where the stops weren't stopped, and then I couldn't visualize the train stops. It was just not. I don't know. I did not like it because I liked where. I really liked the first 2 books, and I liked the setup that it had. It was easier for me to visualize. For whatever reason, this freaking train system, I was like, can't do it. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know where they are. I don't understand the numbers or the colors. There it is. There's the iron tangle.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I saw it, I'm like, okay. But like trying to listen to it, I couldn't do it. I don't know if it's the way that Matt Dinniman wrote the descriptions or however, but yeah, it was a fucking jumble in my head, and I got really annoyed.
Nice.
Yeah, this one annoyed me.
Fair enough. Joseph?
Same thing as everybody else. Like, I really enjoyed the book. It was just hard to keep track of what track they were on. Which, how did it describe them? Hubs or stops or whatever led to what, you know? And it almost felt like I didn't get a better view of things until they hijacked the nightmare, because then they could go basically where they wanted, you know?
Yeah.
And it did not matter which floor or hub or whatever they were on.
The part that started kind of clearing things up for me a little bit, there's a scene where Katya has been drawing this out, and she sets it down, and Mordecai looks at it, and it was just like, how did I not see this? And they're like, what? And he was like, this is the symbol for the original routes that were like the original space routes through the galaxy. He's like, this is a mirroring of that. And he's like, so when you look at it this way, it's that. And they're just like, oh, okay, that kind of makes a little sense. Like, but this is one of those times that a drawing would have been helpful. So I'm with y'all on this. At some point, I do think I was just kind of the same way. I was just like, you know what? It's fine. I'm mainly worried about what's happening to the people. I'm not so much worried about where they're at. Just let me know what's the next stop. The next stop has bad guys. Cool. The next stop is, whatever. Cool. Let's just keep going with Carl and Donut and Katya and see what comes our way. So I went through, I actually within the last week and a half, 2 weeks, actually re-listened to all 3 books. I was on the road a lot. And it was actually kind of nice driving down to the beach. I had quite a bit of time. I could get through at least the first 2 of the 3. So, favorite scenes. I just wrote as favorite scenes. I mean, kind of, read it, as larger things. The Mantars were hilarious. Their personality, just this jacked dude bro of a guy that's like a complete moron. But that's what they do. They run the trains. And when they figured out that they had to get keys, the only way that they could get a key was to get them to stop the train. And the only way to stop the train was to derail the train. And so the Mantar comes out, and he doesn't realize that they've derailed the train at first or whatever. And they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, cool, whatever. And he goes to the pub, and then someone tells him what happens. And then he comes out and, starts attacking them. But yeah, it's like a big beefy dude down like a horse, and where the head would be is another big beefy dude, and he has Wolverine claws. So it's it's one of those crazy things that as you're going through, it's just like, how does he come up with this stuff? So the Mantars I thought were really fun. Scenes in particular that I really enjoyed. So Katya's ability is able to basically take in weight and metal and everything else, and as long as she's moving, she's basically a powerhouse. And so they figure out a way to bulk her up. Like, there's a point where Carl's like giving her like 1.5 tons of raw metal that she can like absorb into herself and turn into a shield and weapons and all this other stuff. And so they meet back up with her old group, the Daughters of. Does anyone remember?
No, I can't remember what it is.
Anyway, she was part of this group, and the leader of it was Hekla. And Hekla was like, "Oh, hey, we've basically come back. We've kind of figured out something. We need your help to go rescue these people. We're coming to pick up Katya. And so, could we get your help to go do this?" And of course, Carl's like, "This feels like a trap." Donut's all in. Donut loves Hekla. Donut's like all about, wanting to be, in Hekla's crew and everything else. And Carl's like, something's not right. Something's not going on here. Something's not right here. And so they devise this plan that they're going to put Katya, basically build her like a train scoop on the front of this train. And they're going to go for this rescue. And as they're going through and doing this, it's Hekla and Donut and Carl. Katya's on the front of the train, and there's a couple other people. Mm-hmm. And Donut's new ability on this floor is she gets these sunglasses that lets her see stuff. And one of the things I also like about the fact is Donut's glasses keep coming back and play over and over in this series. Like they have become super powerful, items. But Hecla ends up trying to kill Katya. And Donut's the only one that sees it. She's like, oh my God, I saw there was this invisible arrow. Carl finds it, pulls it out. This is one of the parts of the book got really, really confusing because there was so much stuff going on. At this point, we've also ballooned to quite a few characters. And so trying to keep everyone straight was also a little difficult. But in a nutshell, the plan was she was going to not quite kill Katya, which was going to enrage Carl, who they were thinking, because of the way that the shows portray Carl, that he's a madman, he's insane, that he was going to lose his shit. He was going to go kill one of the other daughters, and in retaliation, then they could kill Carl. But that's not what happened. Carl kept his stuff together. They knew they saw what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so when all this starts coming out, what is the other one? It's not Signet. What is her name?
Eva?
Eva apparently went into the dungeon with Katya. They were friends, quote unquote, beforehand.
Yeah.
And she's just like, this is why no one likes you. This is why you were holding us behind, blah, blah, blah. And just basically like starts ripping into her. And Katya unleashes a new ability she has, Rush. And unfortunately, it doesn't always go the way she wants it to go. And so instead of killing, you just said her name. What's her name again?
Eva.
Instead of killing Eva, she kills Hecla, which causes the entire daughters to basically fall apart and lose their shit.
Yeah.
And so literally there's a part in the book where they're in this train. They've got all these people rescued. They're in this train. They're moving forward. And there's like a foot of just gore in this train. And they're just like, can we please not fight anyone right now? Can we please just not, can we not do this? And it's at that point they realize Katya's with us now. Like she's part of our group. She's part of our family. I really enjoyed that part. I liked that they were just like, because Carl even says it doesn't have to be this way, Katya. You can just come with us, forget these people. Let's just go do our own thing. And then Eva keeps, nagging her on. She's just like, nope, I'm done. Hit my breaking point. Yeah. So, and then the other scene that I had written down was the fight at the absolute end of the book. Their plan is they've decided that if they can destroy the soul crystals, if they can kill enough monsters to overload the soul crystals, it'll stop monsters from being created, and essentially it would allow pretty much every human in the Untangled to be able to get to and out of the system. So that's the plan. And so their idea is that they're going to get one of these Mantars, and basically Carl has a strike against him that if he kills one of them because of who they worship, they're going to, if he kills one, it's going to summon their god. And so the plan is I'll basically set him up. We're going to throw him into this giant pit. He's going to kill all the giant monsters, break the soul crystals. We'll be good to go. Well, as they're going through the thing, unfortunately, he grabs Carl and brings him with him. And so the god that appears is being piloted by his old buddy, Prince Maestro of the Skull Kingdom. And so we have yet another, this is probably the biggest fight at this point in the book series. It's not the biggest by any means later on. But we have this giant fight where Carl's just like, there's no way I'm getting out of this. And everyone shows up to save him. Like literally he looks over and he's just like, what, Donut, get the hell out of here. Save yourself. And she's just like, don't be stupid, Carl. Like, I think that's literally what she says. Don't be stupid. We were going to come get you. Yeah. We'll figure this out. And they do manage to, because it's Carl. They're not going to kill Carl or Donut. And so they manage to get out.
The ether will hear you. Matt Dinniman might change his mind.
Okay. Ray and I already had this conversation. If he kills either one of those two before the book series is over, and maybe even in the last book, he will burn his entire, like everyone will be gone. Like he might as well just like stop cashing the checks at that point. So it would be like killing Bob. Like everyone else is, there are some that I really don't think he would kill. but if he like killed Bob, like it ain't gonna happen, dude. Like you might as well give up. Anyway, those were kind of the two big things that I wrote down from the first book that were big for me. Is there any particular scenes that y'all also want to bring up, talk about?
I liked the demon monster that kept giving birth like every
and the train. What's her name? Yeah,
and
fire.
Yeah, the fire demon, and then like whatever it was like
fire brandy.
Yeah, fire brandy. So thousands of babies, and most of them just turn into coal, and that's what powered. Like I thought, I don't know, like visually, I could see that really well, and I'm like, that is like really. Yeah. Oddly morbidly creative. I really like that. I don't know why but that's what sticks in my head is that character.
And that's because that's a really big point that comes on later in the books. So this is where we start finding NPCs that they realize that if they talk to them in the right way and ask them the right questions and press them hard enough, that they can start to realize that this is not real. Like none of this is real. My memory, because a lot of the NPCs, like you were saying, we're talking about, oh, well, I'm going to go back to my family or whatever it is. And they start to come to realize I don't have a family. Like my daughter is not real. And because there's a character they pick up, she's an administrator or whatever. And they start asking her, they're just like, well, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to take me to train 1 because that's going to take me to the main yard. And they're like, well, where's your apartment? How do you not know where your apartment? Well, I've been working a lot. Yeah, but you should know that. And so when you start pressing it, that's actually a really big thing. The other thing is that I'm completely glossing over is the name of the book, The Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. Joseph, you are in the what is it called? Discord for this, and you told us that he has been putting out over the book series. He's had people voting on stuff. Can tell us about this one if you remember it.
Yeah. So this was something that I just scrolled back on when I joined his Patreon just to see what was out there. And if I knew you were going to ask me, Eugene, I would have found the poll to see what other things he would be voting on. But basically, the fans voted on giving Carl the cookbook, which I think is fantastic. Right now, there is an active, well, it was active, it's no longer active, poll for another thing that they're going to receive in book 8, but I think the fact that he involves the fans in kind of like not the direction the books are going in, but like it's a huge plot device,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because the cookbook becomes like basically his savior.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's basically the cheat sheet for the rest of the
and
series.
then when you find out more of when you find out in book 7 what goes on with the cookbook and how it's connected to book 7, it's one of those things where I'm glad the fans went the route they did. As an avid RPG player myself, I would love to have a thing like that in my inventory, because I don't remember all the things that were on there, but I do know some of them were like he got a celestial box that had a coat kind of like Quan Chi, and I was like, that good. Thinking about that in the context of what the book is, it's so much better,
Yes. Yeah, because if he had gotten a cloak like Quan Chi pretty much, that's like his thing. Like, and we talk about that in the Gate of the Feral Gods. Like that's Quan Chi becomes kind of somewhat of a big character because of what he's. They finally figure out how he's doing what he's doing and everything else. It almost seems like they would break the series if they gave him something that powerful.
Yeah.
So
I think part of the mystique is like Carl in the book series is not OP. He's not.
No.
He's not like these other protagonists and other things where he's just basically a god. He will fail, or he does fail a lot, But going back to just a random throwaway scene that I thought was absolutely hilarious was, I think it was a wizard or a ghoul wizard or something like that was chasing him through a train, and Donut used hole and chopped off his head. And I was like, that is the perfect application of this spell. Most people would think of this as like an escape spell or something like that. It is straight up offensive.
Oh yeah. And it comes in really handy later on in some of the other books because Donut, we'll get to it here in just a bit, but yeah, she uses it to great effect later on. But yeah, that was one of the things. I also like how he's able to use his not shield, is it shell? The shell spill.
Yeah.
And because it's rooted in place, he does it at the front of the train and the train's moving. It basically just like liquefies everything else on the train.
Gross. This book's gross. It's disgusting. It's gross.
So there's several things about this book. This is the first book in the series where it starts to get really gross. Like there's some gross things in the other ones, but this is where it like really starts to hit its stride about how gross it's going to get. This is also the first book in the series where it's like, okay, from here on out, like nothing is simple. None of these levels are simple. Even if it's a fairly straightforward thing, like when we get to book 6, where it's a pretty straightforward idea, there's still a lot of complications to it. So from this point forward, if you're just like, wow, there was a lot to this book, buckle up. It doesn't get any, it doesn't slow down from this point.
Yeah.
Unless you're Pony Boy.
Oh, yeah.
So
two favorite scenes out of this one that you guys haven't touched on. One of them does mention gore. When the AI suddenly decides that Katja can't hold on to liquid.
Oh, so disgusting.
That was fantastic.
That was pretty funny.
Like
especially because the poor cleaner bot's the one that has to deal with it.
Poor bot.
And she's clean.
Yeah.
Because it comes out of her and it's like doesn't even touch her.
No, it's everything else.
Yes.
Hilarious.
So
the other one that I quite enjoyed was the NPC that kept coming back alive, and they had to go back over and go.
Growler Gary.
Mm-hmm.
And when they figured it out, every time Donut was like, "Come on, Mungo, back to the station."
Yep. Oh, we need another hand.
Yeah.
All right.
that also plays back into the thing of like they got him to realize not exactly everything that was going on, but they got him to realize that we can make this not hurt, but you are going to help. You are actually helping us out. And then when he understood that, he was just like, okay, just make sure it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I can't even imagine, especially in the last book in book 7 that most of us have already finished. I can't imagine how that book would have even been written without the cookbook coming in at this point. Like if it had been anything else, I'm sure he probably would have come up with something, but the way that all ties in together because of all of the so to like I said, we're not, avoiding any spoilers or anything. So the cookbook has been given to him. It was that was also a fun scene too. The fact that they lost Mordecai for like most of the book because he freaked out on.
I didn't like that.
I like Mordecai and I wish he was there, but it was kind of funny the fact that he like lost his shit. They're just like, what happened?
Yeah.
I
don't. He does stuff like that.
One of the things, and speaking of, and that because it does come back later in the book 7. One of the things, so I got one of my coworkers to start reading this book, and one of the things I told him when he started reading, I was like, "You don't realize this your first read through. Nothing is a throwaway line in these books. Nothing. So far, everything there's a thread, and if it can be pulled on, it'll be pulled on." And he and I were actually talking about it yesterday, and he's like, "Dude, I'm halfway through book 5, and I'm like finding myself going back to the book 1 or book 2. He's like, I remember this. Where did it happen?" And it's like the spreadsheet that Matt did.
And see, that's what I want to ask him. I want to ask him, how far ahead are you planning? Because if not, you are fantastic at leaving these little strings and figuring out how to weave them back in a way that makes sense and is eventful. It's not just some little, it was a throwaway character and maybe he shows back up and hands off the thing. Like, no, when they show back up, it's like, okay, so that was important. That wasn't just, a throwaway thing, like I said. So, but anyway, the Anarchist Cookbook is essentially a book that Carl gets. He picks it as a prize, and it is a secret that not even the AI knows about, where previous crawlers are able to leave notes for future crawlers. And so he's going through this, and he's finding, like, there's a lot of good recipes for bombs and stuff, but he has to do his best to act like he's figuring out himself, because he's like, there's no way this can fall into anyone else's hands. because it saves his ass multiple times, like throughout the rest of the book, gives him hints on how to do other things, and he adds to it quite a bit. So, but all right, is there anything else we want to talk about for the Anarchist Cookbook?
I do appreciate for the first time, going back to the scene with Growler Gary, where you could always tell Carl kind of felt bad for the NPCs, but you saw the glimmer of, I can save them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That scene, with Growler Gary, the gnome that keeps talking about his family, the administrator, and then the demon. This is the first book where at least in my opinion, it's like, we don't know it yet, but he is planting the seeds for faction wars and the NPCs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to book number 4, and it is The Gate. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Wrong one.
That one.
Not that one. Try that again. Let's see here.
You're fired.
I know, right? Why is it not going through there? Oh,
we need our IT guy.
Add a stage. There we go. Okay. I clicked on it. It wouldn't switch over. There we go. The second book, or the next book we're going to talk about is The Gate of the Feral Gods. All right. What does that one say? What does the main book say?
Not swim.
Cats do not swim. Yeah. Which is funny because if you're looking at once again, going back to the cover art, if you're looking at the cover art, it's like, what do you mean cats don't swim? They're clearly up in the air. There's a biplane behind them. Like, what is going on? By the way, love the artwork for these books. The artwork is fantastic. Just great. And it does give a lot of clues. The one that gives the most clues though is not the next book, the book after, because that's when the thing I wrote Joseph. I was like, is what you're talking about on the front cover? He's like, yep, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about The Gate of the Feral Gods. I'm not going to go through the synopsis on this one as well, because the synopsis, I'll be honest with you, is not great. It's just kind of very generalized. But I will say, once again, it is a 4.9 out of 15,000 reviews.
Wow. That's awesome.
I'm telling you, that is number one, an insane amount of reviews with a high number, but that is very much a group of people who love the series and are very connected, that he can be like, hey guys, I need y'all to go. I'm sure he probably says, don't go give it 5 stars, go rate it. And everyone's of course like, well, of course I'm giving it 5 stars. I love this book. Why would I not give it 5 stars? And so that just shows how connected it is. All right. So let's talk about some characters that I thought really shine in this book. So Louis, we're introduced to Louis. In this book, everyone is in a bubble and they have to kind of pop their ways out of these bubbles. The problem is each bubble is broken into 4 quadrants. We have the air quadrant, air, sea, it's like what, underground, land essentially. Okay. And unfortunately they're randomized. So Carl and Donut end up in this bubble. And everyone else who's in this bubble with them are all garbage. Like everyone's like, they're in their high 30s, low 40s for ratings. Everyone else is like at a 20 something. Like they barely made it through this last one. And in fact, 2 of the first guys they meet are Louis and I can't remember his other name. The other guy's name. Yeah. Louis. And they're both like, literally, they're just like, how the hell did you get here? They're like, well, we got this thing for when we drove our van into the thing. They're like, wait, you drove a van into the dungeon? They're like, well, yeah, kinda, or whatever. I end up getting a spell. So essentially the one guy gets a spell that gasses everything and knocks it out, and the other guy can like advance it, and they can either attack it and kill it really quick, or they can run. And that starts out okay for them, but as they kept going, it basically was just gas everything and go. And so they never kind of really gained any levels. And so they're like, we got to get everyone together. We've got to make sure everyone's on the same page, because they have to pop all 4 quadrants, or fix all 4 quadrants in the bubble before they can pop it. And then once they pop it, then they can go down the stairs at the end of the thing. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so Louis ends up becoming kind of a really big character, mainly because of the next person that I wrote down was Juicebox. once again, the names on these characters. So Juicebox is cannot remember. She's a
changeling.
She's a changeling. That's right. Yeah. She's not like Katya. In fact, she instantly dislikes Katya because Katya is not a true changeling. She's a little different, but she is an NPC. And when they first meet Juicebox, she's sitting on Louie's lap and basically changing into all this somewhat okay description of usually a really hot fictional character like Jessica Rabbit or somebody that she's a prostitute, and so they're just having her run through all these different scenarios, and she has a date with Louie later on that night. And so we meet Juicebox. Juicebox once again becomes a very important character later on. The next person I had written down was this is our introduction to Samantha.
Yeah.
I did not care for Samantha in the first book.
I love Samantha.
I did not care for Samantha in the first book. I was like, oh God, please tell me she's a throwaway character. She's not a throwaway character, but I end up liking Samantha.
Yeah, so, I was worried when I kill your mother. I was worried first, but the longer she sticks around, the more I'm like, fuck yeah, she's awesome.
Oh, I like from the get-go. Yeah, I like her a lot.
Especially if you know what happens in book 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
With her and Carl.
Oh.
Yeah.
So funny.
You blocked it for your mind.
Let's see here. And then the last two characters I wrote down, I won't talk about quite yet because that really doesn't come in until a little bit later. So, so let's see here. Some favorite scenes. The gnomes. When they have to, they have to kind of, when they're fooling the gnomes so that they can get up in, to the city. So they've got this long drawn out thing that they have to basically convince these air gnomes to let them get close enough to their castle, which is up in the sky. And the initial plan is we're going to try to knock out as much of the castle's defenses as we can. And so there's this whole process of Katya's like holding up this dead gnome. And so that the gnome that comes down and check, and I kept thinking gnomes. I kept thinking like, I don't know, like dwarves, but they're not dwarves. They're gnomes. They're like little bitty people. Mm-hmm. And so there's this whole process of them trying to fool them. And they do manage to fool them enough that it's Carl and Katya and Donut end up getting into this balloon before the gnomes basically destroy the city. And as they're going up, once again, using the whole spell, she basically drops the gnomes out the bottom of the thing, and then there's this whole battle that ensues. I really enjoyed that. The going back to the AI that is slowly going crazy over time, or feral as they refer to it. This is the first time that it gets super duper whiny. That Carl, because the gnomes were shooting these, they weren't bullets, but they were like these bomb things that weren't going off. And when they figured out what was happening, it was these, was it the hamsters, the gerbils, the feral gerbils from the first book? He didn't fight any of them, and he didn't kill him with his feet. And he's just like, they're like, oh, well, we recovered several of them. Maybe you should kill a couple of them. And he's just like, nope, not doing it. You can't make me. And then this tidal wave of gerbils comes and like kills a bunch of people. And finally, Carl's just like, fine. For like an hour, he's stomping on gerbils. And it's just like, okay, this is pretty gross. And then you get to, new achievement. And it's that one's like, new achievement. And he's just the creepy voice and just like, first off, what's his face who does the reading on this books? His voice is fantastic, but my God.
Jeff Hayes did not have to go that hard with that.
Oh, I don't think he did.
It's just, did you have to?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, so hate it and don't let that boy just stop. No, thank you.
Yeah,
Is it Butcher's Masquerade when he goes to the temple, or is that
the temple?
I don't remember.
With the priest?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
Let's see here. Oh, and then so they managed to do this. They managed to knock down most of the defenses, and they're like, okay, well, we still have to get what's left of the castle, which is essentially just a house and all they can see is this little girl gnome wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey as a thing. And so they get to the house, they're able to search it. The little girl's there. Her dad is dead. There's blood everywhere, but she's acting like everything's fine. And she's trying to make lemonade and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then when the boss battle starts, it's like no magic. They're like, oh crap, that's all Donut has. What are we going to do? No physical attacks. What? How do we kill this thing? It's an elemental, and it's just like whatever. And the door slowly opens, and it's a goose. It's, to me, I'm just like, well, the Canadians are like, well, of course it's a goose. It's a fucking terrifying animal. So the whole fight with the goose was hilarious to me. I never felt like what?
The way they kill it was.
Oh my God, yes. And the way they kill it, to stick the goose into the garbage disposal and turn it on and just let it go. Hilarious. I don't know how he comes up with this crap, but oh my God, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I like that they found out that the goose could get hurt by the things in the house.
Right, yeah.
And
so,
yeah, he gets a bright idea. Oh, and he also tries the unknown potion.
Oh, yeah. He drinks the lemonade and he's like, oh, did you really think this was going to help you out? Nope. Wild goose chase. And of course, his first comment's like, how long were you holding on to that one?
Yeah. It was very much the same thing of, or felt like mana toast. It's toast that gives you mana. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. There are times I love the AI. I just like some of the stuff it comes up with is just fantastic. The next scene I had written down that I really enjoyed was fighting the giant shark. That was really fun. So later on, they have managed to pop several. They've managed to break several of the different quadrants. They've actually managed to. Well, Katya's with them this whole time, but they go down to. They have to fight this giant shark, and when they're fighting the giant shark, they have this another boss battle that happens. But this one is actually being streamed live for the first time, and so they're commenters, and the commenters are hilarious. Because they can hear the commenters as the battle's going on. And the commenters are talking about, oh, looks like they've only got about 10 seconds left before that, that glass shatters. And they're just like, shut up. I'm doing my best. So
it very much, the two commentators kind of remind me of, and I don't remember their names. Do you remember Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV?
Yes. That is very much what I thought of. Yep. So I really enjoyed that scene. That's a scene where we get to see Katya's abilities really come into play. This is the ending of this book, and we'll get to this in a second. This ending of this book was something that really starts to set up things that happen that make a huge impact later on. But it's just like, okay, I guess this is important. I really don't understand quite why. And then you get to, once again, the big battle for the last book. At least the latest book, and it's just like, oh, okay. So now I see really what's going on. Honestly, this book and the next one really start to set up the faction wars, and then the one after, well, two after this one is kind of like what kind of is like finalizing, kind of really kind of sealing the deal for it. But yeah, like you could almost break starting at this book. And the next three are really kind of its own bubble type thing, because there are going to be things that last on past the latest book that came out. But this was a big lead up. This was a huge, big deal that has been building up over it. And it's really kind of started in this one. And so near the end of this book, they figured out that they can use the Gate of the Feral Gods is 2 watches and a winding device that they're able to use. Katya has figured out coordinates, and it lets you not only go to different places, but it also lets you go to different levels of the dungeon. And there's, we start getting a bunch of there's a bunch of stuff that the lawyers start kind of coming in at this point. They're trying to stop Carl from doing the stuff that he's doing. Him and Katya are basically saying, hey, we're going to use the watches near the end of the book, and we're going to do this certain thing. And then last minute, they're like, nope, that's not what we're doing. The big thing about the watches is when you use the Gate of the Feral Gods to go from one place to the other, it also allows a feral god or demon to come out. And so that's the big problem. And they figure out by doing this, they're able to find the other people who are not able to get out of their bubbles, use the gate of the feral gods to basically pop the bubble by summoning a demon or god that basically destroys the bubble. And they are slowly but surely like letting more and more people out. And they're like down to about the last 30 minutes or so. And that's when their final plan kind of really comes to fruition. They're just like, what are you, they're like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, by the way, all the water that's in the bottom of this thing, we're going to flood Larakos, which is in level 9. We're going to flood Larakos and basically make it so that all of the companies and all the alien species that think they're showing up for this fun time of hunting and killing us, we're going to make it so that they can't supply at all. And then we're going to come kill you bastards. That changes a little bit as time goes on, but anyway, and there's no way that they can stop it. They tried to stop it, but like the AI is just like, no, sorry, this is how you set things up. Sucks to suck.
You gave them the tools and they're just using them.
Yep. Sorry that y'all aren't doing it. It's funny because it talks about Zeb shows up and she's, like ranting and raving. This is what you're destroying, this, that, and the other. And Carl's like, at first he's just like, why are you talking about this? But then he realizes she's not actually like chiding him. She's giving him information, like important information about this is all the destruction that you're able to cause. Like, good job. But she's doing it in a way that she's yelling at him. So the other important thing that happens near the end of this book is we wrap up the Maggie Mai story. So Chris, one of the characters from the first book, who was with the original old people, turned himself into an igneous. He's a rock monster, basically a lava type monster. And he shows up about halfway through. Everyone said like he stopped talking to his brother. He pretty much stopped talking to everyone. He kept saying that he wanted to join up with Carl and Donut because they're super hardcore. He shows up. Kati is able to stop him with a gift she gets at the last minute. And they figure out what's happened. Maggie Mai has turned herself into, it's basically a brain worm.
Yeah.
Essentially. And she's infected him. He cannot control himself. And she's using his body to basically go through so that she can come around and eventually kill Carl and Donut. But she's also getting help from outside of the dungeon. And that becomes a big thing as well. Like Carl's ranting and raving. Who is working with her? Who is giving her this information and the ability to do this stuff? They come up with a plan. They think they're going to try to be able to maybe move him over to the next. They're asking Mordecai, what can we do to try to save the guy? Mordecai's like, I can't do anything to help you until the next layer of the dungeon. And we get down to the very end. And so it's literally Carl and Donut and Juicebox just kind of sitting around and they're waiting for, what's his name? I've lost his name here. Chris to show up. Chris is there to stop the gate of the feral gods from going on. They end up using a special ability, pull the brain worm out, kill Maggie Mai, completes that whole thing. And it's at that point is when they unleash the gate of the feral gods to basically flood Larakos and walk off into the sunset and basically screw everything else that's going to happen.
So I was terrified when she got into Carl and she was going for his neck. And like that whole scene was like, oh shit. And then the other thing that you didn't touch on was we do get another motherfucker of a character who tries to stop Carl's
what's the character name?
Well, I can't remember the character's name, but he's trying to reunite the dog.
Oh, Quan Chi.
Oh,
and
you know what? I had that written down as the last thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that last scene, Carl basically in a last minute thing goes to worship a god, Grohl,
Embers.
and to to basically, you know, save the day essentially at the last point here. But yeah, there's a giant, it's not a Cerberus because it's not 3 heads. It's only got 2 heads, but it's a giant puppy. It's being shocked by lightning and basically bitten by sharks. So they have to get it out of the bowl. They have to save it. Of course, Donut the entire time is just like, it's a stupid puppy. It can't even save itself. And they're like, no, we have to be able to save it, because then the AI comes in and is just like, oh, if you let this puppy die, you're the worst people ever. So here's an achievement if you manage to save the puppy. Yeah. And so they managed to do it. And the AI is kind of impressed. And it's just like, you know what? If you can get the puppy back to his god who's looking for it, that's another great achievement. That'll be awesome. And then as they're doing it, it's like, you know what? Fuck you guys. Here's an achievement. Everyone who can kill the puppy beforehand, you know, is gonna get this really awesome stuff. And so there's some, of course, Carl's like, everyone put out in the channels right now, if you touch the puppy, I will kill you. And there's still some idiots that try it, but then Quan Chi almost does it. And we get this epic battle between him and Quan Chi at the very end. And I love the scene where he worships the god. He has the invulnerability. Quan Chi doesn't realize it. He's standing over him, you know, with his fist. He's ready to go. And he's like, in his head, he's like trying to tell him, why are you fighting your own people? Why are you doing this? You should be working with us. You would be so helpful and we could get through this as a team. But he's so infuriated. All he can get out is, no one likes you. Everyone hates you. You need to die. And manages not to kill him, but literally rips the dude's arm off. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I was just like, that was badass. So
that was the Raging River that you like.
Oh yes, in the Raging River. So let me ask you all about the Raging River. What are your thoughts? Because this is also, and I've also glossed over something. So Frank Q dies in the previous book, right? Or is it in this one?
Previous.
Okay. Yeah. Maggie ends up in Chris's body. Maggie kills Frank Q. And he got his revenge by giving Carl a ring. Mm-hmm. What is it called?
Divine Suffering.
That's right. Yeah. And the ring allows Carl to put it on, mark someone, and kill that person. And then he gets 1 point. Well, as he builds up, he gets higher. He gets 1 point in their highest stat. So it's an easy way to gain levels that way. The problem is if you mark someone and they don't die, you can never heal yourself. And so that's why Maggie Mai had to kill her daughter, because their daughter was not wanting to fight. And they're like, you have to fight if you're going to survive this. And so they had marked Carl. Carl got away. She got injured. There was no way to save her. And so Maggie Mai killed her own daughter. Once again, some fucked up stuff happened in these books. But that's what drove Maggie to basically go insane. But yeah, he had the ring on. And so what are your thoughts on the river? Because to me, going back and re-listening, it sounds like this is amplifying something that was already there. Or are y'all reading this as, no, since he started using it, this is something new in Carl?
No, I always took it as he already has it in him, and that because he was in the reserves, right? And not that he saw combat or anything like that, but like it's almost as if his life before kind of kept it quiet, and then now because all of this crap's happening, it just brought it up. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily like the description of the Raging River. But like, I don't like this book. I don't like it. I don't like it. I had no idea what was going on 99% of the time. I was so confused. But yeah, the Raging River one, I don't particularly understand why it's a river. I don't get it. It's anger, and I understand that, but the way he talks about it is.
See, I'd say I was like you, but now I'm starting to question, is it just anger? Because he says the only time that he's free of it is when he's completely calm. Like, even when he's just planning and not angry, but just planning, he's like, I can hear the river back there.
Yeah, because when you have that kind of mental illness, when you have that in you, it's always there. It's always running in the background. And most of the time you can like ignore it. It's not really a factor. It's when you get triggered, when things happen, that it pushes immediately to the forefront, and that's all you can. It takes over. Yeah.
Fair enough. Ray.
So if a river is the best way for Matt to describe that, then yeah. But I had a harder time relating to that.
So do you think Ray, do you think it's always been there, or is this something new that's been triggered since starting?
No, I think it's always been there. And like, I agree with Chris where it really, this whole scenario and the AI is almost like it's brought it out more of in him. And I don't mind the river as a description because when it's calm and peaceful, yeah, the water's good. We're all fine. But when you hit the rapids and that's all you can hear is a roaring river, like that makes sense in my head as to how it would be. So,
Joseph, thoughts?
I agree. It's always been there. I don't think it's the ring that's bringing it out. Honestly, I think it's his race that he chose. Because the AI is also a primal, and it's going insane. He chose to be a primal, and he is fighting the river, which would drive him mad.
That's a good theory.
The primalness of him is what is like he's fighting up against.
I like that. Yeah.
That's a good theory. See, the reason I thought it might have not started until this is just because of the way Mordecai was talking to it. Because as soon as he finds out, throw that damn thing away, don't ever touch it. Not just the fact you're going to be hunted constantly, but also he's like, it's not, Carl, you don't want this. You don't want any part of this, son. He even says you don't want any part of this, son. And so I thought, well, maybe Mordecai knows that the ring, and I get it. Maybe it's already there. It just amplifies it. But I'm also just like, well, it could also be installing something in Carl that he doesn't realize what the hell's going on yet. So
no, that's something else from book 7.
Yeah, that's true too. So, so all right. Overall, so actually, Chris is the only one that said I liked it. I loved it. So far, I'm still 100% on the books. So
I think I didn't like it because I much like the third one, I had a really hard time visualizing it. It got very confusing for me. I just couldn't picture any of it. And with you guys talking about it now, I remember shockingly little of this book. I just don't. I'm like, I remember the bubbles. I didn't like it. That's it. That's kind of all I remember. But I think I was moving towards a bit of I need a break from these books just because there's so much that happens and so many characters, and it was a lot to filter through.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the last of the 3 books that we are going to talk about this evening. And once again, it's not doing it. There it goes. The Butcher's Masquerade. All right. Once again, I'm going to skip over the summary on it because the summary is okay. It's not great, but once again, 4.9 out of 17,000 reviews. Still insane. Like,
yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, the people who are down for this book series are still loving everything that's going on at this point.
Oh yeah, and for it to be that high, book 5 into a series, normally it starts dwindling.
There's at least 1 or 2 books that would be like, it's a 4 or it's a 3.5.
Yeah, but it's 4.9 pretty much across the board. So
yeah.
All right. So I wrote down a lot of characters for this one, not only because it's the most recent one that I've just read, but there's a lot of characters that have been talked about in previous books, but really start to come into play in this one. Also, we get introduced to some new characters that are really important going forward. The first one is literally the newest character the 2 newest characters that we're introduced to. Warren, the system advocate, who basically is dressed kind of like a Grim Reaper, and is essentially there to tell Carl, hey, listen, it's all fun and games. You're finding loopholes. You're getting through the loopholes and stuff. But I'm telling everyone they need to kick you out. Like, they need to kill you. But I got overruled. So it is what it is. He essentially looks like he's kind of the boss of the what's the club? Starts with a D.
Desperado?
The Desperado Club. He's in the Desperado Club. they're basically like, hey, we can't let you have the gate of the Federal Gods. That's not going to happen. We will give it back to you, but not until later on in the game. And Carl's very smart, and he's just like, oh, my lawyer. I want a lawyer. I want a lawyer now. And so that's when we're introduced to Quasar.
I love this character.
I like Quasar.
I love Quasar. He is honestly, though, we start off book 7 with a conversation between Quasar and his niece, and they are talking so fast and so crazy. I immediately had to slow the book down to like 1.5 just because of the Quasar talks so fast and is so strange. It's just, but yeah, Quasar is his alien lawyer essentially, and I love the conversation he has. He's like, so what's stopping you from being bought off or whatever? And he's just like, oh, nothing. Like, but in all honesty, if I wanted to screw you, I would just do nothing. So the fact that I'm showing up here should say that I'm at least willing to do stuff. He goes, but he even tells him, especially on the later books, he goes, I don't know how you do it, but I'm having the most fun of my life. Like win, lose, or draw, I'm able to have a blast, like tearing an asshole open for every single person. Like you just tell me what's going on, I'm gonna sickle. Like this is a lot of fun. Quasar is a hilarious character.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Prepotente and Miriam Dom, we've already been introduced to in previous books, just kind of in the periphery, but they come into a really big part in this book. We'll talk about them in a minute. We'll also talk about Miss Beatrice in a second here. We can also talk about Lucia Marr, Signet, and then some of the other kind of other characters that kind of come in. So, scenes that were kind of stand out. Donut becomes a bard. I love this idea, and I love the fact that everyone else around her is just like, have you heard her sing? Like, this is not going to go well. But the idea of the cat singing is just awesome. And the fact that she loves the idea, she just thinks she's just a natural singer. So I love that. So literally we start the book off with Carl's like, oh, hey, Donut, hey, can you get on my shoulder? We got something we got to do real quick. And Katya has decided she's going to leave at the end of this level. And it's really kind of starting to hit Donut. She's like, I don't want her to leave. And I'm like, I don't really want her to leave either, but it is her choice. She feels like she's got to do something. And she keeps trying to tell Carl, she's like, hey, something's happened. I really need to talk to you about something, but you know, we need to talk to it face to face and when we get there. Which unfortunately doesn't happen until like near the very end. But Carl starts off literally like doing a Carl thing and like bombing the city that all the hunters are in. So in this level, it's the hunting grounds. It's basically from the 3rd level, but time has passed. And so they've sent hunters there. We're already getting repercussions of what happened in the last book. The fact that everything has been sunken and Faction Wars is not able to go buy all of their equipment like they normally are. Now they have to send hunters to this floor to try to collect weapons and items and everything else so that they will have equipment for later on. And so Carl's just like, every hunter that's on this floor, if you come here, you're dead. My promise is you will not survive this floor. Yeah. So he literally starts off this floor by going to their city and like dropping a giant bomb. He almost gets killed immediately. And that's when we get reintroduced to Prepotente and Miriam Dom, who Miriam Dom has now become a vampire, even though she's not a gardener. What's the word I'm thinking of? A shepherd. She's a shepherd. Like, and she's very motherly. She's very sweet or whatever. And she won't even feed on anything unless Prepotente has killed it, you know, otherwise or whatever.
Can't
so
forget Bianca either.
Oh, and Bianca. Yes. The giant black flamed demon like goat that he can ride on. So, yeah, can't forget her. Let's see here. Okay. And so it was at the end of the last book. One of the other things about these books that's really interesting is there's always an epilogue, and the epilogue has something usually pretty big that ties into other stuff. And the epilogue of the last book was these hunters going down to Earth and finding Beatrice, his ex. Yeah. And so, what's her name? What's the alien lady that they do the interview show?
Odette?
Audette. Yeah, Audette, she sends her assistant down and basically rescues Beatrice because she knows at this point, it becomes known in the books. Actually, it was in the previous book that when all the buildings were like basically smushed down or whatever, those people were not necessarily killed. Like they were collected. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes they will bring people back. And so that's what Maggie Mai was afraid of. She's like, I had another daughter. They're going to bring her back. I just know it. They're going to bring her back and I cannot fight her. I cannot do that. There's talk in the book. One of the characters talks about how he got to like the final castle for this one level and it was literally almost his entire family, even down to his baby. And that's actually, they say later on, that's when they decided you can't use children, or at least infants. You can't use infants anymore, because he ended up like basically turning a gun on himself because he's just like, I'm not going to fight my previous family. So she rescues Beatrice. And in their interview, like literally moments before they go on, she tells her, by the way, we found Beatrice. She's still alive. And they were going to use her probably for the end boss of this level. Mm-hmm. I didn't want that to happen. And he's like, they're kind of relieved, but we have her on the show and we want to get you to go interview. And of course, Carl just like freaks out and Donut's actually the one that calms him down. Like, no, I've got this, Carl. It's okay. Carl's very cold. Donut is very professional. Now, granted, they're like, Beatrice obviously does not know what the hell's going on. She's obviously very drugged up. And the interview it's not very Jerry Springer-like. He was like, that's what I was afraid it was going to be. It was more just kind of like a interview type thing. It goes very well. And then as soon as it's over, Donut just loses it on her. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, how I'm trying to remember all the points she hit. You don't give up. You don't leave loved ones. Like you were my world. You were my person. You were everything to me. I heard that you were going to get rid of me. You don't throw away people you love. Carl, how could you do what you did to Carl? He's not a smart man. He does some really stupid stuff, but he didn't deserve that. I love how it's always an insult peppered in there. Yeah. She's a cat though. She understands that. And so we have, she basically has this breakdown on her and then Beatrice is gone. And then a little bit later on, whenever the other dinosaurs come in, like Donut kind of loses her shit at some point, and he's trying to calm her down, and she has a real breakdown. And this book, if we're talking about the books as they're going on, I said the first one of the three books that we talked about, that's the first book that I feel like we get ramped up to the level that we're at now, and we don't ever come down from. This is the book where things start to get emotional and start to hit deep because we get genuine feelings from Donut of abandonment. She's just like, and they had this very sweet moment that like, if we were going to do this as like an animated show, this is the very sweet moment of Donut. I'm not going to leave you. It doesn't matter what happens. It's you and me, period. End of story. I'm not going to leave you no matter what. Yeah. And cause she's just like, Katya's leaving and I'm afraid you're going to leave me. And for being a book about a guy running around in his underwear and killing monsters with his foot, this was like generally very emotional, and I really enjoyed it. So
I was sad at that part. Mm-hmm. I was sad at the end of the book, the way that plays out.
Yes,
multiple reasons there. Yep. Yeah, this was a big hitter.
Yes. This is where the emotional baggage starts to really come in. So, let's see here. The interview with Beatrice. Okay. And then we have to get back to light stuff. And Carl goes to CrawlCon, which of course, if something is the biggest entertainment thing in the universe, of course they're going to have conventions dedicated to it. I love the fact that he's there with these two other guys. They've literally got him like doing a children's drawing art contest. And he's just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. And then he has like, he's doing the signature stuff with the Popoff brothers, who are really cool. We end up meeting them in this book and everything else. And, but the second part of the interview where, he basically takes over the panel. I loved every second of that when he takes over the panel and he's just like, yeah, that was some boring shit. Who here wants to help me figure out how I'm going to survive when I go back? And of course, everyone's like, tune in.
Yeah.
So
that was pretty cool. We also get introduced to zero zones.
Yes.
That was interesting.
So
yeah. So the zero zones, if you don't remember.
Again, I remember shockingly little of this book. Oh, God.
So Carl's being escorted towards where he's going to be doing the interview, and he all of a sudden feels extremely weak. And basically, anybody that has been enhanced has been reverted to having no powers within that area. That's my read on it, anyway.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. Because he even says later on, like, he's stopping to think about, I think it was a point where he was reflecting on a new ability he got or whatever, and he stops and thinks, he's like, you know, this is not real. I have to remember, this is not real. I'm not really, he's like, as strong as I am, I'm not the strongest crawler, but even then, like, I can lift stuff that there's no way in the real world I'd be able to do, but all of this is not real. Like, whenever I finally get out of here, whatever that's going to be, I'm not going to be the super indestructible guy. So, yeah. And I think Zev at this point is also trying to convince him of that. Just like, hey, just keep in mind, yeah, it's helping you right now to basically screw over all these companies. But just remember, if you survive and you get out of this, like they're still a thing out there, and you're going to be this big. So, but yeah, CrawlCon's a lot of fun. But what's happening to CrawlCon is as soon as he's pulled away, the problem is him and Donut are trying to get to safety when he gets pulled away. And so we find out that Donut is left in a town with Lucia Marr, who already wants to kill her. And so he's freaking out about that. He gets enough information to know that she's okay. So he's able to kind of settle down at that point. But he doesn't know exactly what's happened. And so we'll go with this. I actually wrote this down the opposite way, but so literally he finds out enough information to know that he's going to be attacked as soon as he gets back. And so as soon as he gets back, the people who are there to attack him is what is her name? Her name is Ra. Ra is this giant mantis thing. She's supposed to become the next head of her race, basically like kind of the next queen or whatever. That's supposed to be her last crawl. She attacks. She's got several other people with her, but there's this other faction that's after him as well. He manages to sidestep enough to get away. Then Donut and Katya show up to help him out. He ends up getting away. Not before he's able to stab her with an arrow of
double gonorrhea.
Super double strength something gonorrhea. You're right. And so the way the AI describes it is your genitals literally catch on fire and then heal themselves and then do it again. And it's just that over and over and over again. And the only ways you can get rid of it is to basically neuter yourself, which she's supposed to become the next like breeding queen for her entire race. So she's not going to do that or to pass it on. And there's only one other mantis on the entire planet that she can do it with. So they're like, we got to find this dude and protect him or help him out or something. That's a whole funny thing that happens there too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyway, so Vra's pissed off. Her mother's the one that was running the con, or was one of the people at the con. He royally pissed her off as well. And so anyway, they get into a safe room. They start talking about it, and they're getting to watch the recap of the fight with Donut and Lucia Marr. So Lucia Marr keeps showing up in the previous books. She was a girl, which first off, they're like, I thought you said no kids. Like any kids that came in were supposed to have been taken out. And they're just like, I don't know what to tell you, Carl. It's something that's weird happening. We don't exactly know what's going on as well. But she's got she's basically a kid trapped in a woman's body who keeps going between a beautiful form and a demon form. Mm-hmm. She keeps having multiple personalities running through her constantly. She has 2 Rottweilers. One of them is larger than a normal Rottweiler that she likes, I think. And then there's the other one, Gustavo, who's like the size of a friggin' horse. Or is that the right? Anyway, one of them she likes, one of them she doesn't. We're still not exactly sure what the hell's going on with that. And so she's figured out a way that she can get crawlers to basically get pulled out of the safe areas, and that's what she was trying to do. Luckily, Donut is faster than they are, and so she managed to like flip out of the way. Samantha ends up taking the hit. Like she basically is this one giant Rottweiler's like chew toy. Donut and Lucia Mar go up into this treehouse. She hits Lucia Mar several times. She's still okay. Donut's rooted in place. She manages to use her bard spell just as the giant dog comes in. And when the giant dog attacks her, she opens up the hole, drops down. The dog doesn't know where she is at first, looks through the hole, closes the hole, decapitates the dog, and sends Lucia Mar into a freaking tailspin. Freaking fantastic. The whole scene is awesome because it's not only the replay that we're watching, but we have Carl freaking out as to what's going on, and Donut's explaining it, going, I knew what I was doing, Carl. It's fine. And of course, it's no, you look the hell out. But yeah, that was a fantastic scene.
What I was going to jump in there too. What I liked that Carl kind of explained was, so the whole plan that they came up with at the show, he knew he wasn't going to do it because he figured that they were getting that information to the hunters.
Right.
And so this was his way of proving that. And so when he got there, he didn't do what the plan was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, which proved his point. And then he was able to kind of talk about that later on as well.
Oh yeah. That comes a really heavy, especially in the books, how are, there's not supposed to be any communication, but obviously there is. And, in the latest book, the AI really stomps down on that. It's finally kind of done with it. It's just oh no, I'm no more, no more talking. So, the next big scene, and a lot of these are fight scenes because this book had a lot of really awesome fights in it. But the next scene is actually another one of those really heartbreaking scenes, and it's the death of
Signet.
Miriam Dom. So. She's basically become a vampire. They were fighting a vampire hunter. That was a side story that was going on. Pony is basically frozen, and he was using a ring of divine suffering as well. And the spell bounced back and forth, killed the vampire hunter. Pony is basically frozen, and she cannot unfreeze him without possibly killing him. Mm-hmm. And so the only way that he can be unfrozen is if someone else does the spell. So she gives the spell to Donut, but she has to basically die. And he's like, oh, that's why she called us here, was not to help her save Pony. It was basically to protect her so she can die. And they're just like, can he hear and see what's going on? She's like, I think he can, but I don't know. And so, yes, he's probably seeing everything's going on. They're just like, cool. So we get to stand here while his mother dies and not do anything about it. What is he going to do? And she tells her whole story about growing up and, when Pony was actually still just a normal goat and everything else. And it's very heartbreaking and it's super sad. And you feel a lot. Once again, this is, like I said, this is the book that all the emotions really come in, start to get, and so, yeah, she dies. Prepotente comes back. He's just destroyed. They end up dealing with more dinosaurs. We didn't talk about the dinosaurs yet. We'll talk about the dinosaurs in a second. But anyway, and so they end up managed to get through that. But yeah, he's like, something changed in Prepotente, and he talks about with Donut. She's like, he seems different. He goes, yeah, death can cause lots of different things. Death can cause people to just fall apart, or they can really cause you to focus. And apparently that's what Prepotente's done. Prepotente's just nope. Everyone who had any kind of a hand in her death is going to die, period. And of course they're like, does that include us? Which apparently it doesn't. But then, yeah, Prepotente flies off. So anyway, dinosaurs. So there's lots of dinosaurs in this book. And when they first meet the dinosaurs, there's this big scene and they're just like, step away, Donut. We have to step away. You aren't replaceable, but as much as you don't want to lose Mongo, I understand. And then Mongo and the female Velociraptor start fighting, and then they're not fighting, and Donut loses her shit. And she's like, I'm too young to be a grandmother.
Yeah, it was really cute. Yeah. That was funny. That was she got all very hovery mother helicopter.
Yes.
Dinosaurs, and very, I think almost because there's another potential for somebody that she loves leaving.
Yes.
She got very scared. But I like the dinosaurs. I didn't like the reason they were dinosaurs. That was kind of
because of the
they were bears.
Yeah,
they were bears, and it was because whatever it was, the big cataclysmic event that happens. I can't remember what it's called. And they happen to be turned into dinosaurs. And so that's how we also get to, we'll go ahead and reference her now, Big Tina. Big Tina is not a tyrannosaur. She's an allosaur. So for all the dinosaur nerds out there, there's a difference. But yeah, Big Tina is a allosaur who used to be a child, can kind of like has slight memories of that. She's basically holding a wand that's kind of fused to her hand that doesn't do anything more. She has a pink feather boa that's barely holding on wrapped around her neck, and a tutu that's kind of fused to her body. So really weird looking. And then all of the velociraptors are all the mothers that are constantly trying to look out for her. So you have this allosaur that wants to, like, literally throws a temper tantrum at one point because she wants to eat Carl and Donut, and the velociraptors are trying to tell her no. So she's literally jumping up and down. They're like, it's like a train going by, the whole ground shaking. Once again, funny stuff. And so the next thing I had written down was the actual Butcher's Masquerade. This was confusing as hell because of everything that happens on.
But before we jump into that, I just want to point out that my favorite spell in the series so far happens in this book, and no one ever actually uses it. But you do hear the what's her name? The announcer lady. I feel like it's
Cascada.
I'm sorry.
Cascadia?
Yes. She's like, we have to make an adjustment to the fuck those trees in particular spell because it was not doing what we were doing. We thought it was going to do. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but that's my favorite spell.
I completely forgot about that until you said it. Yeah. I love some of the little announcements that they've had. They stopped doing them as much, but like in the previous ones, like, you know, little things like, yeah, we have patches for tonight. So that goes back to the whole blood thing that Ray was referring to in the previous book. We had to patch the being able to hold on to infinite liquid. So yeah. So in the Butcher's Masquerade, they have to go to this high elf. They have to go to these high elves castle. So there's the AI throws another thing in there. There are these monsters they have to kill. And if they don't kill all the monsters, this giant thorny brush thing is basically going to collapse in over the entire map. And so of course they fail it because the hunters don't do their jobs. But everyone is able to gain several different levels this way really quickly. And so everything's come together at this one big thing. The castle looks like a giant sugar cube, which there's lots of different comments on that. And so at the castle, they've got lots of things they have to handle. Number one, they have to survive, but they have to basically kill the idea is they have to kill the queen so that they can gain control of the castle, because they've got a spell. Whenever Carl gave up the Gate of the Feral Gods, he got a spell that he can basically send a town down to, the 9th floor. And so that's how they're going to get all the NPCs that they had previously moved down in the previous book. That's how they're going to get them to continue to move. So they've got to get control of the castle. They've got to kill the queen, but they've also got to wrap up Signet's story. The what is it?
Revenge of
the Daughter. They have to finish up the Revenge of the Daughter side quest. Like there's lots of stuff going on, and the rooms are like the hunters are in one room, but it's kind of overlaid, and then they're in a different room that's overlaid, and then the queen's overlaid there, and there's another scene that comes in that's a really big thing that we didn't talk about. As they're going out and trying to kill some of these monsters, they run into some elves, and the queen turns out to be the twin sister of Florin, the crocodilian's girlfriend, who was killed by Lucia Marr on the previous level. So that was going to become a thing that are like worried about Florin, but her familiar is Fernand, aka Gravy Boat, aka the cat that loved Donut. And so we introduced to him. He's hilarious. I love the fact that he thinks he looks awesome. He's wearing this big hat, and they're all laughing at him. And so there's a whole thing with that. Samantha has a huge part in this. Oh, that was the other thing. And then of course, what's her name? The Vra, of course, needs to try to kill everybody as well. So there's all this stuff going on, and quite literally, they managed to get the castle basically disappears because they've essentially saved the day. They've caused this what's her name? Signet, the daughter's revenge, kills herself, frees all of her tattoos. It causes the collapse of everything that's going on. They save all of the NPCs. That ends up going off, and they're literally faced with a 4-way battle between the remaining hunters themselves, Vra, the queen of the insect people, and then the actual queen. It's this huge freaking battle. Lots of people, get killed, and we do lose several characters in this. This is where it got really confusing for me, because I was like, what the hell is going on? And like I said, going through and listening to it, this is probably my second run through of the book, but listening to it specifically with the other 2 books back to back before this was really helpful. So essentially, yes, they've gotten all the NPCs to the next level. They killed Vra, which was, really helpful on their end. The Popoff brothers end up dying, but then they end up turning into babies. It's this weird thing that happens, and they're taken away. And so that plays in really heavy later on that, if you have children, if you're pregnant or they're babies, they're not in the dungeon. They're taken away. Ferdinand ends up becoming part of their team, which is also kind of crazy because he ends up kind of joining them. But before they leave, what's her name? Katya ends up finally killing, what's her name? The woman Eva. She was trying to kill, Eva. But Eva gets her revenge at the very end because she gives her the crown, the crown of the sepsis. The crown of the sepsis queen. And so now either Katya and Donut cannot leave the 9th level until they kill everyone else. It's extremely hard to kill because they don't normally they participate, but they hide. So they not only have to kill all of them, but then kill each other.
Yeah.
And so now we've got this huge spike that's going to go through, and, she hasn't been able to say anything to Carl. So anything else that I'm missing? Because there's a crap ton of stuff that was happening there.
The only thing I was going to say is I do love that.
I'm sorry, go on.
The one thing I did want to say was that final battle when they go through, it's like it's the 4 corners. It's like the key, and then they each hunter pops up, and each like that was really cool the way they did that, where every face kind of popped up. And,
yes.
And then after all of that as well, you kind of kept track of Carl described it like he could see the people being X'd out and kind of know what the balances were and that kind of thing. So I did like that part.
Yeah, that was fun. And then of course, probably I don't want to say it's the most important thing, but right before they end, Prepotente joins their team, and so before this book ends, we start moving on to the 7th floor. And the 7th floor, everyone starts off on these glass bubbles, and Prepotente is like, him and several other people were given items to give to Donut, and it was specifically so that she could survive, so that she can move on. But she was also given a couple of things that she's supposed to give Prepotente. Of course, he was confused about it, and he's like, "Oh, I figured it out." Because apparently, even though Prepotente is like batshit crazy, he's also like insanely smart. And he starts talking about this weird fairy tale or whatever, and Cascadia is the announcer, realizes what's about to happen, and starts trying to run through the rules so they can start the 7th floor really, really quickly. And as she's trying to do that, he literally takes out this small hammer and this small metal post and finds a certain place in this bubble and just taps it. Like, it's not even hard, just taps it. And it starts to crack. And he's just like, that's funny. I kind of thought this would be all instantaneous. And then everything shatters and every single one is released from it. And literally the 7th floor is done. We talked about this back in the previous books. And I know I've talked about this with Joseph. I was like, how many books did he say he was going to do? And I think you said he's shooting for about 10. I'm like, well, there's 18 floors. Either they're not going to get all the way through 18 floors, or they have to do something to skip over floors pretty quickly. And this is obviously a way to skip over a floor, because they literally completed a floor in about 30 seconds. So, which was kind of fun. Because Carl even says at one point, he's like, yeah, we got 2 more floors until we get to Faction Wars, and then it's on. It's like, nope, you only got 1 more now. Mm-hmm. So I have been talking a lot. Anyone have any comments they want to say?
It's just like a lot happens and a lot of characters get introduced, and it's very hard to recall a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Like so much of it I've forgotten because there's just so much that happens, which is a testament to his writing. I mean, like, it's crazy good how he keeps it all together, like in flowing the way he does and writing as much as he does, because there isn't one page that isn't full of something, which is it's impressive, but still at the same time, it's my perimenopausal brain cannot contain it. I'm forgetting so much.
Well, yeah, and I know, like, we're only talked about book 5 right now. Like, there's still book 6 and 7 as well. But we can't cover them right now because there's so much that happens to them right now.
And I have the 7th book.
No,
I just finished the 6th.
Well, I will say, I'll tell you this, Chris. When you finish book 7, it really does wrap up a bunch of stuff. Like a lot. Like I said, the last 2 books and the next one really are the build up to the 9th floor. Because after the 9th floor, it's kind of like, all right, I think the 10th floor is when people start getting out.
Yeah, they start making, if anybody makes it to the 10th.
If anyone exactly. Yeah. And I'm not giving anything away, but a lot of people make it to the 10th floor. So it's going to be
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that a lot of people make it to the 10th floor. It's like, not that it's the same, but a lot of just a second.
Anyway, Joseph, thoughts on this one?
I agree that up to now, this is the most emotional book. You know, you've come to love a lot of these characters, you know, and it's some of the things that happen are sad, but I think it needed to happen specifically because, you know, there's only so much you can outrageous the last book. So it felt like it grounded them again, even though crazy shit's happening. The emotion grounded it again, you know, in order to set up for the next couple of things that are going on, you know, and the way book 7 ends, you know, there's that emotional thing there as well, you know, so I appreciate that he's doing that.
Yeah, I agree. So what were y'all saying?
We have a dog who's
dog is being very
it's fine
spoiled right now.
Dog's gonna dog.
He's dogging. He is definitely dogging. For sure. I was gonna say, like, there's a series that I'm reading, and it's very, very world building. So there's lots of characters, and there's lots that are that's happening, and I will get to a certain point of the book, and it feels like it's supposed to be a big, like, dun-dun moment, and I'm like, I don't remember who this person is. I don't know. I don't remember why this is important, but I'm gonna keep going because maybe I'll remember. But yeah. Like that.
Like, I want to say her name's Barb. I can't remember her name. I know it starts with a B, but the scene where they're going up to the castle, she's supposed to be the one that's playing the guitar for Donut when she sings, which, by the way, that was awesome as well. Donut has a whole singing thing with Mongo and everything. The idea of Mongo moonwalking is also very cool. But anyway, I kept thinking, I was like, I should know this character. Well, she's a minor character from 2 books ago, because when she first showed up in the other book, I was just like, oh, that's who that is. I was just like, where did she come in? I don't remember her situation.
I don't remember.
Because there's so many.
Of all the epilogues and all of the books, I have enjoyed Donut's rendition of Wonderwall at the end of book 5 more than anything.
Yes,
that was awesome. So, well, okay, so general thoughts on the 3. Thumbs up for me all the way. I'm 100% in. And like I said, like I said, book 3 is where we ramp up the action and stuff. Book 5 is where we get we ramp up the emotion. It's where, like Joseph was saying, they did need this. They need to be grounded, because otherwise it starts to get kind of too wackety schmackety. But even if it is wackety schmackety, you still care about the characters. And a lot of their motivations really start coming in. Katya in particular, her emotions really start to come in. But like, this is where we find out that, they talked about Donut is growing. Like, she's still very childlike, but she's also growing very, very fast. But you can see that's a complex. I mean, I say it's a complex emotion, but the idea that, she's putting together that everyone leaves me and I don't want anyone else to leave me. And it's happening. There are adults that walk around in life and don't realize that. Like, that's, what I'm saying? Like, and the idea that's coming from a cat is kind of like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah. She's a full on person, essentially. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're running kind of late, so let's kind of run into our picks. What else we've been reading. If someone wants to go first, I've actually got to go back and check because I didn't write it down.
I'll join because I actually do have a new book that I read.
All right, what you got?
So I read The Night Raven by Sarah Painter. It's book one. It was a decent little amuse-bouche into a world. So we'll see where it kind of goes from there. I'm not necessarily going to make a recommendation yet until I get book two.
Okay.
Also, I've been I was re-listening to Bubbleverse, of course, because why not? And then I have started A Court of
Thorns and Roses.
Uh-oh.
I pressured it. I've been nagging him about it for a long time. This is like this decade's Twilight, and he read Twilight years ago. So I was just like, I have to talk to somebody about it. I have to. At the audiobook. He already had to stop it a couple of times and be like, wait a minute. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? I'm having so much fun. He's not, but I am.
You say that and it makes me go, maybe I should read it just so I can listen, just so I can be
it is.
Ray, I'm right there with you, buddy.
Reality television for books.
I'll let you know.
I don't know about that.
I'll let you know when I've got about 2 hours left so that you can catch up, because there's it's going to take me a long time to get through.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Chris, what else have you been reading?
I've been reading a bunch of stuff. I brought my book down. 5 books since last time. So I finished The Magicians by Lev Grossman. It's a part of a trilogy. I'm not going to finish it. I didn't like any of the characters. None of them. I wanted to flick all of them in the forehead. So I'm not going to continue. Then I finished The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, which I need a break from Dungeon Crawler Carl. I need a break. It's a lot. I liked it. I really did. I really liked it. But yeah, it's going to be a while, and then we'll see how book 7 ends if I keep going. We'll see. I read for my other book club, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. It was so sweet. I would never have ever picked it up ever if this wasn't a recommendation. It's about this town in Washington, all of these kind of interconnecting characters, and an octopus whose name is Marcellus. And he's so cute. And if it wasn't for the octopus, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, but the octopus makes it. He's so it's almost like they shrunk Sheldon down and stuck him in an octopus. That's kind of like his temperament.
Okay.
It's so cute though. And it's a really endearing story. And then I read The Night Raven, which I liked. I liked it. So I want to know more of it, because the first book was definitely just an introduction, and it ended right when the story got good.
Which is why I'm waiting to figure out if I'm going to recommend it or not.
Yeah. And then the last one it's a collection of short stories by Charles DeLint called Muse and Reverie. Our neighbor across the street, he's an OG nerd. He's 76 years old, And he is super nerdy, and it's so cute. He handed me these 3 books. He's like, here, and they're urban fantasy. So I liked some stories more than the other. But Charles DeLink collaborated with Mike Mignola, who's the creator of Hellboy, on one of these stories.
So Hellboy actually shows up.
So Hellboy is
that's cool.
Stories. Hellboy and Abe, and the Firestarter. I can't remember her name right now.
Yeah.
All work together as sort of this squad, and so it's really, that one is my favorite.
Chris was like, "Wait."
I had to look back at the acknowledgments.
She's going through.
I'm like, oh,
she's like, the Department of
Paranormal
Activity.
Yeah.
Minute, and then she's like, Hellboy.
Nice.
Hellboy, and I'm like, I don't know. Is that just like
the Hellboy?
Is it the Hellboy, or is it just something? Is Hellboy?
Yeah, something else. Yeah.
But no, it's Hellboy.
It's Hellboy. Okay.
It's Hellboy. So that was really cool. That was and it was written in 2004. So it was actually part of a DC, Dark Horse comic. Yeah. Yes, but he got permission to put this in his collection of stories. It's very low fantasy, all modern day. They all take place in this community in Arizona. Most of them, and it's it's just interesting. It's not something I would normally read either, but I'm trying to read them so I can give the backdoor neighbor. Yeah, that's all I've read.
Nice. Joseph, you been reading anything else?
Yeah, I've read 2 books since we last met. I read the first book in the Ascend Online series. I will read the rest of the books when I'm done with the series that I just started. My only complaint with the Ascend Online series is the way that the guy is playing the game. I don't agree with 90% of the choices he has made, and it's driving me crazy. And then what kind of RPG doesn't give you a healing spell or healing potions? That also drives me crazy. So I'll read the rest of them because I was entertained. I liked the way the story went and whatnot. But I came across another book because Reddit is your friend. And I literally just said, I need another lit RPG, and give me the best you got. And there was a top 5 on Reddit. Dungeon Crawl was number 1. Yep. Number 2 was a 4-book series called Beware of Chicken. I read book 1. It's free on Audible if you guys want to give it a shot.
I've already downloaded it because I talked to him about it this last weekend.
Yeah. I started book 2 today. It is kind of in the same vein as Legends and Lattes, Chris.
Oh, okay.
So it's a casual kind of lit RPG. Mm-hmm. The crux of the story is this man is all he ever says is he calls it the before. He dies in the before, which would, I guess, is like modern day, and he wakes up in the body of this what we assume is Asian man in this fantasy world. In this fantasy world, the people use their chi to have like superpowers, and they're called cultivators. He's a cultivator, does not want to be part of the cultivator world, and he goes, buys a plot of land, and starts farming. While he is farming, he is using his chi to feed the ground and have better harvests, blah, blah, blah. The reason it's called Beware of Chicken is because his rooster is eating these chi-infused herbs, and the rooster then becomes sentient. He starts to mimic this monk as he goes through his martial arts training and whatnot. And every once in a while, you'll have the man's point of view looking at the rooster. It's like, what the fuck is this rooster doing? Why is he kicking and stretching and doing all this kind of stuff? And then they'll switch to the rooster's point of view, and he is having these epic martial arts battles with the rats that are on the farm and the foxes that are trying to attack the chicken coops. And it is this insane. And then more animals get drawn in, and the chicken's name, the human, the man, calls him Big D, because he's a cock, ha ha ha. The rooster thinks his name is Badi because that's the way the rooster interprets it. There is a pig that the man calls Chunky. The rooster calls him Brother Chon Ki. And so you have all these kind of like the rooster's perspective of everything is far different than the man's, and I got a real good kick out of the first book, and it was free. So I just downloaded book 2 today and started it today.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. If you
Cool.
want something, Chris, that's low stakes, it's worth it.
That's probably the next thing I start.
Yeah, that's it.
Free in Canada, Audible as well. So
awesome,
nice.
And also,
okay.
It's got like 4.8 stars and like 1,000 ratings, and all of the books are like that. So it's got a little bit of a following.
Cool. Okay.
Very cool. Yeah, he told me about it this last weekend, and he reminded me of it before the show just now. And he's like, "Well, I got it free," and I looked. I was like, "Oh, not a bad way to start a series." So,
yep.
And like we talked about, I mean, if they were smart, they'd make almost every book in a series free, because sometimes all it takes is that first book, and you're just like, "Well, yeah, now I got to finish the series, or I at least got to see where this goes." So,
yeah.
Since we last met, I followed the recommendation of our friend Dennis E. Taylor, and I started reading. I can't remember what the name of the series is. Let me see here. Title details. It is. Oh no, that's the Murder Bot. Never mind. We talked about that already. Here we go. Title details. It is the Stardock trilogy. So I read that. It's by what's his name? Sean Finian, and it's a series. It's just a trilogy, and I ripped through all 3 books. So essentially, what's happened is this alien race shows up with this giant spaceship, and they're like, "Hey, we are traveling to another part of the universe. We have to catch up to the rest of our group. Our basically repair station is broken. We don't have time to fix it and catch up. We noticed that y'all are sentient. Y'all should be able to use this. So we're going to give this to you as a gift." So they start testing people on Earth. And the first guy who is able to communicate with it is a guy. He's retired. He's like 67 or so. He lives in the northern U.S. He knows he's neurodivergent because he says so. And he's like, "I wonder if that's why I was able to talk to them first before anyone else." And they're like, "Cool, you seem like you can control everything. So how about we bring you up to the ship and we let you communicate with the ship, make sure everything's simpatico, and then we're going to leave you to it." And he's just like, "Okay, sure. Why not?" So they take him up to the ship. Sure enough, he's able to communicate with the AI, and the aliens leave. And before they leave, though, he's able to get out of one of the aliens. "So why are y'all really leaving this?" And the guy's like, "I cannot tell you that. Chain of command says I can't tell you that. I'm just telling you we're not leaving because we want to." He's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, we're kind of being chased. That's all I can say." "Oh, cool. So there are other aliens coming and they were following y'all?" And so he figures out very quickly, oh, this isn't a gift. This is a decoy. They want us to start using the technology. So when the aliens that we pissed off show up that apparently are not as fast, but more technologically advanced, they may think we're them and take it out on us and leave them alone. And so the entire book series is him coming to some very rational realizations. But this ship is he unlocks the AI and basically figures out that there's all this advanced technology, communications, advancements in weaponry, advancements in medicine, and all these different things, and very much takes on the idea, okay, well, if I leave this up to the nations of the world, we only have about 3 to 5 years before these aliens start coming up. So if I leave it to the United Nations, nothing will ever get done because they'll debate constantly. If I give this to any single country, to include the United States, they'll immediately get nuked because everyone else will be like, no, y'all aren't going to have it first. So I'm giving up he basically contacts the president and is like, "Hey, so I'm giving up my nationalization. I'm creating a new world or a new group. I want you to join me in on this because I'm going to need as many people from the planet as I can to start becoming pilots and soldiers and everything else." It's an interesting idea. I like the rationalizations he comes through. Like I just explained, like if he gave it to the United Nations, nothing would ever happen. Like the aliens would show up before we even decide who's the first person that gets to step foot on the thing. But yeah, he comes to some rational ideas. It's just very Pollyanna. Like things kind of flow a little too easy. There's not enough I can't believe I'm saying this. There's not enough conflict. Like, I'm like, in the situations that are going on, a lot of these countries I think would fight back before this, or are digging their heels a little more than they would. Maybe it's just the current political climate. I'm feeling that way. But that was my kind of main complaint with it. The guy knows he's not, like, he's extremely smart, but he also knows he's not like the end all be all. He's like, no, I need to find people who are really good in biology because I don't know that shit. So it's very much, let's build, I'm trying to build a team. I'm trying to find out, and I love some of the ideas. Like, he's like, hey, there's technology here that can basically not reset your health, but basically make it like shave 20 years off of your lifespan, or, your life, so that, like, if you're in your 70s, you'd be more like in your 50s. And so all of these diehard military people, maybe we should have y'all doing stuff because y'all have got the experience. I can teach you what's going on. And it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, like I said, it comes to a lot of logical conclusions. I just don't see it coming to fruition. And it's funny because at the end of the books, he goes through and talks about some of the different terminology he uses. And he even admits, he goes, listen, I know this was kind of a glossing over some of this stuff because this is what I have to do to get the story out. If I got really into the details of how some of this would really go, it'd be a boring story when one read it. And I'm like, all right, fair enough, dude. I get it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can't recommend it yet. I'm waiting for someone else to pick it up. I'm kind of thinking maybe Sean might, and see what he thinks. And if he's like, yeah, I think the group might like it. Okay. But right now it was interesting. It was good, but I don't know if it's quite good enough for me to recommend. Like, there's other stuff that I've already read that we haven't covered that I'd rather go with at this point. Mm-hmm. So, but overall, like I said, if you enjoyed the Bobaverse books, I understand why Dennis recommended this series. You would probably like it. It's not the resource management porn of actual resources. It's more so the management of governments and military. So if you're really into that, you may really like this. Like I said, for me, it was just kind of like, okay. So I give it a thumbs up, but it's not two. It gets one. So if we're going to go by that series. So, all right. That being said, because we've gone pretty late, let's talk about our social stuff. You can always find all the shows that we do at epicallygeeky.com, including the Epically Geeky Show, Creatively Geeky, and Sustainably Geeky Show. In fact, when this comes out on Monday, there'll probably be a new episode of Sustainably Geeky coming out as well. You can find us on all the social media that we still do, to include Facebook and Instagram. And I've been putting up reels, shorts, whatever you want to call them. So, if you haven't listened to the episode and you want to see kind of what we're talking about, you can go there and kind of find some stuff. It's going to be hard on this episode because I only got about 15 minutes. So I've got to decide where I'm going to have it scanned out of this 2-hour monster we've created to come up with shorts. But that'll be interesting. Anyway, where can we find you online, Ray?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram and on Blue Sky, even though I don't really post there.
Fair enough. Chris?
Just Instagram at Moody Midlife.
Joseph?
More Joe 7 on Blue Sky.
And as always, you can find my individual wacky adventure online at Optimachine on Facebook and Instagram. For everyone on the site, have a good night.